Well, we started talking a little bit about agents there. Next up, Ramesh Raskar is an associate professor at MIT Media Lab and also directs the Camera Culture Research Group. He's working on creating the building blocks for the infrastructure for the Internet of AI agents. So we're going to hear a lot more about that. First, he's going to share a presentation, and then we're going to get into it a bit with some questions, including those from you. So please be ready. Ramesh, welcome to EmTech. Over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk about networked AI agents in decentralized architecture, NANDA for short, which is also the name of my sister. So if you think about the best AI models that are emerging now, is this going to winner takes all? Will there be exactly one diabetes agent for the whole world, one financial advisor for the whole world, one math teacher for the whole world, and we're all just going to become intelligent slaves with soulless jobs? This highly centralized thinking, centralized mental model of how AI is going to evolve could be wrong. Because right now we're in kind of a mainframe era of AI, massive centralization. But very soon we're switching to the PC era of AI, where everything will be running on the edge. So instead of renting AI models, we'll be owning them. And when things move to the edge, amazing things happen. So companies are already experimenting with the intranet of AI, like agents within their organizations. But very soon we had to move to the internet, and after that to the World Wide Web. And the internet was about connecting machines. The World Wide Web was about connecting people. And Nanda is about connecting agents. So I want you to imagine, an agent for every one of us. Billions, maybe trillions of agents out there navigating autonomously on the web, socializing, earning, transacting online. And we think we're going to move through these three phases very quickly of the agentic web. In the beginning, it's about the foundations, identity, authentication, security. Then it's about agents creating new organizations, new stock markets, new Groupon, new poly markets, and so on. And very soon after that, agentic society like us, creating organizations, creating universities, creating justice systems, creating even religions. And we're going to go through all of this very, very quickly. So today I'm only going to focus on the first two parts of it. And I'm going to make three arguments about the openness of the agentic web. An economic argument, a social argument, and finally, how we're going to do it with technology. So first one is why. What's the onset of this agentic web? And what if the groupthink on AI infra buildup that we're seeing right now is wrong, right? I mean, $100 million salaries, billions of dollars in data centers, nuclear power plants. It's a little bit crazy out there. It's like the mainframe era of 90s, with overinvestments in telecom and fiber. But as we move to the edge, the company that has created this crazy enthusiasm about AI infra buildup is also sending us a signal that maybe the small models are the future of this agentic AI and agentic web. So I highly encourage all of you to read this paper from NVIDIA, because the models are getting small, they're fantastic, they run on edge devices, and they're highly tuned for the tasks. And these models are actually very powerful, they're pretty good, and the small models are also more controllable. So in enterprise settings, they have the right functionality, better alignment, less hallucination, better control. The second is the risks for open agentic web, and why do we even care about keeping the agentic web open? Now, if you think about Tim Berners-Lee's open and neutral World Wide Web, despite browser wars and proprietary extensions, we have an amazing ecosystem. Thanks to the World Wide Web, we have scientific discoveries, we have GitHub, we have worldwide trade. It's fantastic. And organizations have emerged like DNS and ICANN and Mozilla to keep this open. We were not so successful in other ecosystems like iOS and Android or social media like Facebook and Twitter. And in the first case, we traded security of those apps for a lock on innovation. And the second case, we took the UX and convenience and traded it off for opaque and unknown governance. So the picture on the left is how we hope agentic web will will land. Because if you're a company that makes anywhere between $1 million to $10 billion, you want it to be open standards. Consumers can interact through open standards with this whole cottage industry of new opportunities. On the right side is like the iOS and Android, where consumers can interact with services and even other consumers through the agent store, the App Store and Play Store equivalent. And that's what leads to walled gardens and disintermediation. And what really frustrates all of us as businesses and consumers is this opaque governance of algorithms. My friend Robert Leaf reminded me that this Christmas we're going to see children's toys where children can talk to a ChatGPT-like toy verbally. What could go wrong? There's addiction, there's misinformation, inappropriate content, social isolation. And again, we're not against these amazing innovations, but they're too opaque. We don't know what's going on. So, this is how it could play out. This is a paper we're writing with about 15 different companies. For next 6 months, we're going to see intense protocol wars. 6 months after that, we're going to see network effects come in where these platforms use their networks in an unethical way to create walled gardens. And soon after that, 6 months after that, we expect oligopolies that create service dependencies, ecosystem lock-in, and there goes any innovation friction, global south will suffer, and all the businesses that would like to expand with their own freedom would be clearly challenged. There'll be 2 or 3 platforms through which we're going to experience the agentic web. And that's going to lead to the intelligent slavery and the soulless jobs that we have. And this is going to lead to a lot of despair and unrest. But there's another way we can do this. If all of us commit to 2-way open protocols, not 1-way open protocols, and .orgs emerge, like ICANN, like Mozilla, like W3C, and then the long tail wins. And there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of innovation. And if you're a fan of Adam Smith and the invisible hand, we'll have the pluralism and the middle class and shared prosperity. All right. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to keep it open and vibrant? And I'm going to use the analogy of the telephone ecosystem, where we built a telephone exchange, not just an intercom. Who here is familiar with MCP and A2A from Anthropic and Google? Okay, quite a few of you. But they're building an intercom. How do you connect 2 known agents? What we need is a telephone system. And if you're kind of a fan of ITU said every country has their own country code, but after that, you have a pretty broad autonomy for every country. If I were to call the corporate sales for 4 Seasons in Abu Dhabi, hierarchically, there's a lot of autonomy that goes on. Now, if you're going to be in the post-AI world of this agentic web, we understand on the right side how to build these telephones, how to create these agents, which is very, very well understood, CRUA, LangChain, ADK, and so on. But on the left side is what we really need to build. It's like the OSS stack for the internet. And within that, there are 4 main choke points. So if you're a business, if you're a developer, if you're a country, if you're a university, we believe these are the 4 choke points we need to work on and make sure they're open. And that's what Nanda is all about in phase 1. But in phase 2 and phase 3, there are a lot of other work that our team is doing in collaboration with many others. So we have been working on this almost 10 years now. We'll have a workshop this afternoon at 1 p.m. You can join that. And then there's a massive roadmap for this, research roadmap. How is edge AI going to play out? How agent adapters are going to play out? What kind of agent stores that are out there? There are lots of subtle issues that we need to deal with. So we invite you to join us for these working groups. And we have many industry and academic and government collaborators already working with us. So it's a fascinating group that's working together on these 4 choke points that I mentioned. You're also welcome to join us on the research for this. So let me go through these 4 choke points very briefly. First one is the phone book, the registry, like ITU had the country codes. Whoever controls that is going to control the agentic web. So one solution would be we create a DNS-like phone book, but that will have high traffic and OLM. Or you can create some things decentralized where the agents just run off of websites. And that would lead to, unfortunately, re-centralization and insufficient discovery. So the solution that many partners together have come up with, which is called NANDA Index, is kind of mirrors the ITU's country codes, where you have one lean switchboard that can allow any agent store talk to any other agent store. And after that, the agent stores themselves run multi-level private registries, like Abu Dhabi, like Four Seasons, and their extensions. They have enough abilities to run private or public registries. And of course, MIT should not own that. So the neutral governance is coming through 15 universities. The second choke point is adapter. How can all these protocols and platforms talk to each other? So take a look at how the adapters are being built. And the third one is about kind of attestation. So if you think about when cars are sold, you have crash testing, you have tracks to test them, you have audits, you have recalls, all those things. So we think for Agentic Web, if you think about the analogy of the toy, they have to be tested not just before they're sold, but before they're sold, while they're being used by the kids, and afterwards on a weekly basis, right? Because these are non-deterministic platforms. So nest.mit.edu. Nevertheless, despite all of that, there's going to be a lot of chaos in the agentic world. And anybody who's telling you they have 5,000 agents or 10,000 agents or 1 million agents in their corporation are probably not realizing how much chaos is also being created, especially the wipe-coded agents, because nobody knows. And I think 10 years from now, people are going to call people like me saying, hey, Ramesh, you actually know how to code, right? Can you come and help us? Like we used to call the COBOL and Fortran programmers after .com, because we don't know what these wipe-coded agents are doing. So I think there's going to be a lot of agent chaos, and each of these blocks are multi-billion-dollar opportunities that somebody has to go and solve as long as we keep an open agentic web. So at 1 o'clock, we invite you to come and create your own agent. How many of you have your own agent, AI agent? All right, so you're going to come and create that this afternoon at 1 p.m., right after lunch. And to conclude, I think we have this amazing opportunity to unlock trillions of dollars of value of the agentic web. And I think the community has really come together to build and try to solve these 4 choke points for the agentic web. Thank you.
Thank you. I felt like I had a lot, both when I got to preview your talk and then today, I felt like I had a lot better idea of where things could be going, right? And your last note about agentic chaos is something that I think about a lot, right? And it does seem like we're entering this world where a lot of different outcomes are possible. When you talk about Tim Berners-Lee setting up protocols, he did so, or when you think about the web being set up, it was set up in an era when there was much less of a vested interest by large corporations in steering things away from those open protocols. How as a practical matter, given the evolution where Google, where OpenAI, where these other large companies do have a vested interest in seeing an outcome that might be different than the one you're proposing?
Yeah.
How do we steer it in the direction that you?
That's a very good question. I just had dinner with Tim Berners-Lee about a month ago, and asked him the same question. I said, "What should I do?" Yeah. And what Tim told me is like back in mid-90s, he could get the 20 people that matter, at a dinner table in a conference room, and just reach a consensus on how a lot of these protocols and interoperability and portability should work. And as you said today, we have companies that are worth billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. How are they going to come together? I think organizations have learned very well. If you think about Nokia, how it lost the game, how MySpace lost its game, and so on. I think companies realize that they might think they're dominant on a given day, but over the next 3 years, it's unclear if they can maintain their dominance. So nearly every company that, as you saw on our slide deck, is working with us.
I saw that. Yeah, I did.
Because they're all hedging. They're saying, let me at least stay in the open world. And there could also be just like in the 90s, the reason why Linux really took off is because there was this one common enemy back then, which was Microsoft was being a bully. Not anymore, but back then. And I think something similar is happening now. I think the ecosystem is realizing that there's 1 or 2 bullies that are emerging, and everybody else needs to figure out how they're going to have their own roadmap that's not going to be impeded by these walled gardens. So the next AOL, the next CompuServe are out there right now, and everybody else is working with us to really make sure that doesn't happen.
When you talk with those companies, when you speak with those large companies, do you have the impression that you said hedging, do you have the impression that they are actually really bought in, though, or are they just trying to stay at the table?
I think they're really bought in because I think the investments are insane on the centralization. And now the decentralization wave, everybody realizes that this overinvestment in this highly centralized model of AI, some people are calling it a bubble. I don't know, it's an AI bubble, but definitely it's an AI infra bubble. But when it comes to the agentic opportunities, we think, if you look back to 80s and 90s, the invention of PC, was economically very lucrative, but the internet and the web was significantly more interesting. The same thing today. Should it be about AI or should it be about the network AI? And so I think people realize that the networking of AI is going to be ridiculously more lucrative than making AI smarter and smarter. And it's like, is it yours bigger than mine? It's like we're going from like 95% accuracy to 96% accuracy and so on. So there's all this crazy race that's going on to make the AI models better and better. But most of what the business needs, we're already in a post-AI world. And unless you're kind of doing drug discovery or climate modeling and so on, as we're seeing, these small models that are highly specialized are actually really, really good. So I think the big companies are realizing that. So the whole stack is getting transformed. The chips, the models, the PCs, the networking, and everything else on the OSS stack that I showed. So I think there's a lot of economic activity that's already taking place, and the companies are very, very open to that, including the very large companies, including the FANGs.
I should have done this at the top, but as a reminder, if you have questions and you would like to ask them, you can come to the microphones, or if you're online, you can ask, and we'll get them. I'll get them here and can pass them along. Talk to me about what they mean. We've talked about the big businesses. Talk to me about what a medium-sized company can do in this situation, or even an individual actor. How can individuals and small businesses secure a future that isn't dominated by a handful of players? Yeah.
So as I said, I think a dystopian scenario would be if there are only 2 or 3 agent stores. And the analogy I like to give is, imagine for the World Wide Web, there are only 2 companies through which you could publish your websites and run your businesses online. One is Squarespace and one is Wix. And to create your website, you have to go to them, use their tools, use their ranking, rank on, post on their stores, and you hope to be ranked among the first 10 or 20 in your category. By the way, any money you make, 30% is given to Squarespace or Wix. That would have been a pretty dystopian world. We didn't get that. We got a large variety of different platforms. And Agentic Web, I think it'll be similar. I think if there are 10, 20, maybe 100 different stores, I think it'll be fine because they'll be forced to talk to each other. Very much like telecom companies all over the world have to work with ITU to talk to each other. And so I think to your question about small businesses, I think it's fine to go and create your own agent stores if you want to capture that, or participate in communities, or participate with us and say, hey, so we have all these working groups. So there's going to be like a health store for Indonesia. And all the health agents in Indonesia will be supported by them because they can take care of regulations and privacy and all the good stuff that's there. So there's going to be a lot of complexity, and I think that it's natural that any business would like to be listed in some store, as long as it's completely portable. Tomorrow if you decide to move to some other store, you can do that too. So get started, launch your agents. Even if in the beginning they're only knowledge agents and not, I call it action agents. They're just disseminating information about your business. Those are kind of knowledge and information agents. By the way, we'll help you build that this afternoon at 1 p.m. At the workshop here on the stage. And I think it's very easy to get started. And then insist on using 2-way open protocols. Because there's a bit of a FUD going on because a lot of organizations are releasing 1-way open protocols. It's like saying, in PowerPoint, I can ingest keynote, but I cannot output keynotes. It's a 1-way open protocol. But you want 2-way open protocols for this to happen. So I think 3 things. Start deploying. Second is, make sure you insist on creating your own agent stores in your own community. And the third is, insist on 2-way open protocols.
And sir, I think you're up first.
Thank you. So the internet had early protocols and structures that encourage the network effect. How do you evaluate and how do you achieve a critical mass for the network effect in the agent space so that it favors that as an outcome? And how do you motivate large corporations to create that pull? Because they're the big check writers in the near term.
Yeah, I think we are not here to say that you should be open source or open data, or this is not a kind of a kumbaya moment, right? I think, as you said, Matt, there are enough companies who have invested billions of dollars and are moving ahead. So I think they need to make sure that their own roadmap will not get impeded by some kind of a duopoly or oligopoly that's emerging. So it's kind of it's a win-win for everybody. And so clearly for that, if they get together and say, hey, in health sector, we're all going to work together like this. In supply chain, we're going to work together like this. In e-commerce, we're going to together like this. It's a win-win for everybody.
Before I know we have a question here. Before I get to that, I want to follow up on something I was thinking about. When you're talking about creating a sort of a neutral platform where everyone can operate equally, are the players who have the more powerful agents, are the people who can have the larger models? I know you mentioned the NVIDIA paper on
right.
But are the people who have the more powerful models going to have an intrinsic advantage in that world? I
mean, one strong assumption here, which is debatable, is that we are in a post-AI world, and intelligence itself is commoditized. So this race to build the most amazing agent or the most amazing AI model is a meaningless race. And once we get to that stage, it's just like saying, as much as we love one PC over the other PC, the PCs are somewhat commoditized. And so we're in kind of a post-PC world. We're in the post-AI world. And the post-AI world, how you connect is more important than how amazing your individual AI model is. It's like Sun Microsystems in the 90s, where they started saying the network is the computer, yeah. And now is the network is the intelligence.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have the new iPhone, and like people say, what did you upgrade from? And I don't actually know anymore, which is the case would have been.
Because unfortunately, we're locked into this duopoly.
Yeah.
We're giving convenience for innovation.
We have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to try to get to both these questions if we can.
Good morning, wonderful presentation. I can just imagine the whiteboards as you guys are brainstorming this stuff. But curious, what is / our government's role in kind of building and designing these frameworks?
Yeah, I just came back from a trip to multiple countries. And I think every country is currently talking about sovereign AI. But in our conversations, I think hopefully what we are making them realize is that they also need a sovereign agentic web, that's not choked by, from some oligopolies. So I think it's very critical for governments to realize that. At the same time, I should also say that this is not about standards. I think standards are like 80s and 90s. Standards don't win and don't bring openness. I think what really brings openness is consensus. Have you thought of any standard in the last 20 years in software that really kind of came from a community? But Linux, is it a standard or is it a reference implementation? So our focus, even for these 4 choke points, is not about standards, but about reference implementations through consensus. And I think the government's also realizing that the reference implementations and developer economy, developer ecosystem, is more critical than talking about top-down standards. And I know Europeans have tried this really hard to just have top-down standards, but I think the ecosystems move so fast that we have to kind of go with the flow. And as new ideas emerge, new research emerges, new devices emerge, the reference implementations keep moving. A good example is Agentic devices. The fact that Qualcomm and NVIDIA and Intel, Intel is back in this business, could be really big players in thinking about intelligence at the edge, right? And connecting those, your microwave, your car, your refrigerator, your medical devices, your 5G, 6G stations, they're all going to work in this extremely interesting network of intelligence. And we can have a long conversation about that, but that's going to unlock a lot of value.
We have less than a minute left. Let's try and get one more in if you can ask quickly.
Sure, quickly. One of the things you mentioned was the sort of a variety of stores around agents. One of the things that brings to mind for me is the risk of third-party risk. So you talk about business to business, right, and being able to credential myself in a way that I'm not presenting risk to the companies that are consuming my agent. How are you approaching that sort of security layer in the protocol that you're putting together? Yeah,
so the 4th choke point that I mentioned, which is the nest, is that. I mean, again, using the analogy of toys or cars, where you just have, crash testing or test tracks, in AI agents, you need it every day. So, if you have a toy or if you have a product, if you have an enterprise product, it should take a driver's license test every morning to make sure it's deployable. And the Nest architecture is basically is allowing you to do that because security is in a more deterministic manner, but the agents are very non-deterministic. So what they're going to do yesterday is different than what they will do today, as opposed to traditional software. And so that requires you to be in this fourth choke point that we have to eliminate, which is everybody's tested and validated on a daily basis.
Ramesh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I can tell you I'm not going to buy my kids any AI toys for the holidays.